It almost seems like beating a dead horse, and perhaps it is, but I felt somewhat compelled to make this video because of a link one of my subscribers sent to me not too long ago concerning the PlayStation game Uncharted 4. The title of the Polygon article being Uncharted 4's women characters angered by a sexist focus tester, Naughty Dog says. Let's quote something from the article. Quote, when I'm introducing and describing a new character to our new lead character concept artist, constantly she will ask, what if it was a girl, Druckmann said, when asked how his interest in the work of feminist frequency affected the recent PlayStation 4 game. And I'm like, oh, I didn't think about that. Let me think. Does that affect or change anything? No, cool, that's different. Yeah, let's do it, end quote. Now, this has been addressed a million times in different formats and different ways, and even I've talked about this, but I want to talk about two major issues when it comes to fiction, whether it's video games, television, film, books, whatever, and the nature of SJWs themselves. Now, obviously, it seems like Naughty Dog was bending over backwards here to some extent, and not too long ago there was the issue of Blizzard's Overwatch game, which I've played a fair bit of, where one of the character poses was deemed to be too sexy, and so it was stricken and altered or changed in some manner. The problem with what people, first off, in the issue at hand here is what is appropriate for fiction and what is not. And I'm going to argue here that there is nothing in the entirety of fiction that is inappropriate. The whole point of fiction is to be able to explore issues and stories and environments that not always, but frequently are not possible in the real world due to ethical concerns or just any other sort of restraints or constraints with regards to, say, science fiction, or space opera in the case of Mass Effect. The political correctness of the real world is and should be irrelevant, and that includes all manner of other things. For example, there are a wide number of horror games, a huge array of horror games on the market that are quite good. I haven't played most of them, but I've seen them. I've watched Let's Plays. Some of the stuff that goes on there is creepy and disturbing. You could even create a game, and someone tried to create it somewhat along these lines, a game such as Hatred, where you go around just killing people because you're a psychopathic killer or a sociopathic killer. You could even create a game whereby your whole point of your game is, I don't know, you're a psychotic killer going around trying to create the strangest, most puzzling murders ever. These are all possibilities for a fictional setting. And many companies have come under fire from SJWs concerning this. I mean, Naughty Dog, I guess, is one of them. The Witcher 3 even, it was just too white. Never mind an area such as Zarkania, which is, populated by black-skinned people, is very much sort of Middle Eastern flair to it. I mean, the real issue when it comes to fiction, in addition to anything goes, is not so much is it realistic, but is it believable? Given setting X is Y believable. And if it isn't, then you scrap it and you move on and you insert something that is believable. But more often than not, if a story is being told and it's decent, then there are going to be believable elements in there. In case of Witcher 3, which, the expansion of which came out fairly recently, Blood and Wine. I haven't played it yet, but I hear it's quite good. There are going to be elements in that particular expansion that may be deemed inappropriate by some people, but is it believable? Does it suit the Witcher universe, as it were? And I think it does. Many of the stories there, in The Witcher 3 in particular, were disturbing. So what? It's fiction. So anything really goes in fiction. And the only real caveat there is whether or not there's a degree of believability, which is why I've been rather critical of BioWare with Dragon Age Inquisition, simply because, let's face it, inserting strange transsexual characters simply to make a statement lacks in believability. There's an artificiality there, which goes hand in hand, coincides with believability, and if you put it there, you can see it's artificial. Whereas that minor scene with the Witcher engaging the hunter, where you find out, oh, the hunter is gay, he says, I'm a freak too. Whereas he's talking to Geralt, and Geralt initially thinks, oh, he's a werewolf, but no, he's not actually a werewolf. It turns out he had a homosexual love affair with the son of a lord and was exiled for that reason. It was believable. It fit into the setting. Hence, it was a nice mini story within a larger story. So this is one thing that people don't seem to grasp, that anything goes within fiction as long as it's believable. And inserting social justice arbitrated characters or concepts into a storyline merely to have them there often strains the limits of believability. And I think that's the real issue when it comes to these sorts of stories, whether it's Naughty Dog or Overwatch, which isn't really that much of a story, but still, Witcher 3 and Dragon Age Inquisition. Now, there's another issue at hand, and that's the very puzzling question as to why private entities, private companies that make and produce games actually kowtow and cave into these people. Most research has shown that the vast majority of the demographic, they just don't care about these issues that are brought up by non-gamers effectively. Whether or not there's this person of this gender or sex or this sexuality or orientation, it doesn't matter to them. Is it a fun game? Does it have a good story? Does it more importantly have a believable story? All of this stuff is important, but not who is playing what and what is playing who. It doesn't really matter. So the real question is why these people are buying into it. In the case of some companies, such as BioWare, it was pretty clear. After all, BioWare really bit the bullet since the developers themselves and the people working on the games are more or less SJWs of a sort. But I want to make an important observation that I've observed this time and time again. I don't think I've publicly stated this, but what are SJWs other than professional trolls? There is that famous axiom of the internet, is there not, whereby one states, don't feed the trolls. And I've had to learn this lesson the hard way after many, many wasteful hours of arguing with the trolls, where the comment section becomes inflated and bloated. Trolls seek attention. They wish to have attention drawn to them. They want to engage for the sake of engagement. They like that. And when you don't give them that attention, well, usually nothing happens. And if you look at SJWs in the context of being professional trolls, if you don't pay attention to them, what do you think will happen? Well, I think probably nothing. They'll just sort of slink off and no one will really mind or even hear from them again. And that's the issue at hand. This should be applicable to every institution, but when you think about private institutions, and in particular private gaming companies, developers or publishers, why they listen to people who have no bearing or impact on their profit margins is really puzzling. Now, of course, we live in a time and age when PR and public relations are incredibly important, but it stretches the limits of my credulity to believe that it's that important for companies such as much as I dislike them, Ubisoft, aka Ubi shit, or CD Projekt. Well, we'll get to that in a bit, or Naughty Dog, or Blizzard would actually be concerned about that. CD Projekt Red handled the controversy. It wasn't even controversial, but the quips about their fantastic game Witcher 3 a bit differently. They said this is the setting, this is what we're striving to create, a kind of Eastern European mess of things in a fantasy world. And in this particular case, it's mostly white people. And if you go south to Zarkania, it'll be mostly dark-skinned people. I mean, they didn't apologize. They said, this is our vision, this is what we're going to do. And the SJWs might have had their commentary and might have complained, but they ultimately just slinked off into the sunset, and people enjoyed the game and voted it as one of the best games of all time, which I think it is, one flawed masterpiece that I believe it to be. This is the key. People being devoted to a particular vision they have, creating a product and following through with it, and ignoring some of the lopsided criticisms that they're offered. I mean, things like, oh, look at Look at the way her shirt is open. You almost can see her breast. I mean, who cares? And yet, time and again, you see private entities and companies paying lip service to this. Now, I've actually talked to a game developer once, and he told me it's a real thing that people, talk to these social justice warriors and SJW-minded people in general, and issue concerns about diversity and representation, and to hell with it all. I made a video a while back about Deus Ex and the like being sort of the last bastion of freedom of expression. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that these are private entities, right? And the public government interference, then of course social justice-minded people, extremely left-wing people, progressive people are going to sink their claws into that and take advantage of it. But the profit margins should be dictating what kind of games are put out and the reception of the audience. The audience of many of these games doesn't care. Witcher 3 fans, we don't care about the politically correct things. Even if you're not even involved in this whole anti-feminist scene or anti-SJW scene, it doesn't really matter. We need to treat them, all of us, and it's somewhat redundant making this video, I suppose, but it's necessary to point this out. We need to start treating these people as professional trolls. And we need to start applying the axiom of the internet, don't feed the troll, to SJWs. In particular, developers need to do that. They need to say, look, we're making this video game, this is our vision, we're going to follow through with it. And if you have a problem with it, then you can have a problem with it, but we're not going to change that. Until we start regarding SJWs as professional trolls, their concerns as negligent to completely unwarranted, we're going to be having to deal with this continually over and over and over again. Rest assured, when the next BioWare game, Mass Effect Andromeda, rolls in, the same concerns will be uttered. Oh, diversity, representation, etc. From my point of view, it simply doesn't matter, and it shouldn't matter to people who enjoy video games. After all, it is a fictional setting, and the most important thing in fiction is that anything goes and the believability of that setting. Ethical concerns and pseudo-ethical concerns, which are the concerns of SJWs, do not apply here. Anyway, I wanted to keep this relatively short and on point. I think we all need to make a vested effort and try to treat these people, as I said, as professional trolls. And that applies above all to video game developers and publishing companies. Do not pay attention to these people. They're irrelevant. They're not going to enrich your pockets. The customer base will. And the customer base doesn't care about these so-called social justice related issues. We really don't. Whether they're cognitively aware of, very much cognizant of that, my case and others who frequent this channel, or just the casual player who just sort of enjoys shooting stuff in Far Cry or whatever, these are not the kinds of people who care about this stuff. So with that said, I hope I made my point, and I will see you again for the next video. Take care. If you liked this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you enjoy my content, please consider making a donation or becoming a patron. Thanks for watching.